What happens when an undercover CEO discovers corruption right under his nose? Hello everyone. Today we bring you the gripping story of Marcus Reilly, a CEO who goes undercover at his own gas station chain to uncover shocking corruption and betrayal. When reports of overcharging and mistreatment reach his desk, Marcus decides to see the truth for himself by working alongside his employees under a fake identity. What he discovers will change his company forever. Stick around for a powerful tale of justice, redemption, and leadership that will leave you inspired. Marcus Reilly leaned back in his leather office chair, staring at the growing stack of customer complaints scattered across his desk. For the past few months, emails and phone calls had poured in, all pointing fingers at station number 7, one of the busiest gas stations in his family-owned chain, ReillyFuel. Customers complained of overcharging, indifferent staff, and service that fell far below the standards Marcus's father had instilled when he founded the company 30 years ago. Marcus's father, Robert Reilly, had started ReillyFuel with a single station on the outskirts of the city, built on principles of fair pricing, friendly service, and honest work. Through relentless dedication, Robert expanded the business, eventually passing the reins to Marcus 5 years earlier with a simple charge: keep it clean, keep it fair. For a while, Marcus did just that. Under his leadership, ReillyFuel expanded to 12 stations across the city, catering to everyone from truckers and commuters to luxury car owners. But as the company grew, so did the distance between Marcus and the employees who kept things running. More often than not, he found himself buried in paperwork, legal meetings, and discussions with investors, rather than speaking directly with the workers who pumped gas, cleaned restrooms, and stocked shelves. And now, with reports of poor service stacking up, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his father's legacy was starting to rot from the inside out. He tapped a pen against his desk, his eyes narrowing at the particularly damning messages. Customers complained about prices being higher than advertised, workers showing blatant disrespect, and a manager who brushed off complaints like they were just another inconvenience. Station number 7, located in a bustling, high-income neighborhood, was supposed to be a flagship location. Instead, it was rapidly becoming a liability. Marcus had already tried addressing the issues through formal channels. He'd called meetings, reviewed reports, and emailed management. But the responses were always the same: excuses about staffing shortages, high turnover, or the challenges of dealing with entitled customers. None of it felt right. The reports showed solid profits, but numbers alone couldn't capture what was clearly a deeper problem. Frustrated and unwilling to let his father's company crumble under his watch, Marcus made a decision. No more emails, no more meetings. If he wanted to understand what was truly happening, he would have to see it for himself. And for that, Marcus needed to go undercover. Marcus Reilly decided it was time to step away from his plush office and into the gritty reality of station number 7. He couldn't trust reports or filtered feedback anymore. He needed to see things with his own eyes. To do that, he would have to disappear into the background. Over the next few days, Marcus crafted a believable new identity. He shaved off his neatly trimmed beard, traded his tailored suits for a worn-out denim jacket, faded jeans, and a scuffed-up pair of work boots. Slipping his dark hair back and wearing a frayed baseball cap, he transformed himself into Sam Carter, a recently laid-off construction worker looking for any job that paid. The preparation went further than appearance. Marcus purchased a cheap, battered truck from a used car lot and even bought a prepaid phone to complete his disguise. He made sure to leave all signs of his wealth and status behind. Driving into station number 7 felt surreal. It was a location he'd visited only a handful of times, usually for official inspections or brief meetings with the manager. This time, he was just another desperate applicant, hoping to earn a paycheck. Marcus walked into the station's dingy back office, where he found Logan, the site manager, hunched over a cluttered desk covered in wrinkled paperwork and half-eaten snacks. Logan looked up, eyes tired and unimpressed. "Yeah? What do you need?" Logan grunted, barely glancing at Marcus. "You saw your ad online. You're looking for help, right?" Marcus said, his voice lowered and gruffer than usual, playing the role of Sam Carter with ease. Logan scratched his stubbled chin and shrugged. "We need bodies. Can you work a register or handle a pump?" "I can do whatever you need," Marcus replied, keeping his gaze steady but unassuming. Logan sighed and pulled a crumpled application form from the mess on his desk. "Fill this out. We're short-staffed, so if you're not a total idiot, you're hired." Marcus filled out the form with shaky, almost illegible handwriting, just enough to be believable for a man desperate for work. Logan barely glanced at it before tossing it into a drawer. "You'll be working the pumps and helping out wherever you're needed. Report to Tyler at the counter. He'll get you started." Marcus nodded, hiding his surprise at how easily Logan handed him the job. No formal interview, no real screening, just a body to fill a gap. It was no wonder things were slipping through the cracks. As Marcus stepped out into the busy lot, surrounded by the smell of gasoline and the hiss of air compressors, he felt a jolt of nervous excitement. This was his company, but today he was just another worker, and that was exactly what he needed to be. Discovering the corruption, 500 words. Marcus's first day on the job was a trial by fire. Tyler, the senior cashier Logan had referred him to, was a brash, sharp-tongued man with the perpetual smugness of someone who believed he owned the place. As Marcus approached the counter, Tyler barely glanced up from his phone. "You the new guy? Pump duty's all yours. Don't screw it up," he snapped, tossing a crumpled apron Marcus's way. There was no attempt at training or guidance, just a dismissive wave towards the pumps. Marcus took it in stride, masking his irritation as he went about the monotonous tasks, fueling cars, wiping windows, and cleaning the station's dingy restroom when instructed. As the hours passed, Marcus began to notice patterns in Tyler's interactions with customers. Tyler handled most of the transactions, especially with wealthier-looking clients. A sleek black Mercedes rolled up, and Marcus watched as Tyler's demeanor transformed from indifferent to overly attentive. "Premium fill-up, that'll be $120 today," Tyler said with a grin. The driver handed over a card without question, though Marcus knew from the company's posted prices that a premium fill-up should be no more than $80. Minutes later, an older woman in a rusty sedan pulled up. Tyler barely glanced at her before announcing, "Regular, $30. She hesitated but paid, her eyes darting nervously between Tyler and the pumps. Marcus's suspicion grew with each transaction. Tyler was clearly overcharging wealthier customers while dismissing those who looked less affluent. Worse, Marcus noticed that Tyler frequently pocketed cash payments, tucking folded bills into his pocket with the casualness of a man who had been getting away with it for far too long. Curious, Marcus approached Olivia, the timid teenage cashier who worked alongside Tyler. She handled smaller transactions and dealt with general complaints, but her demeanor was jittery, her eyes constantly darting towards Tyler as if seeking his approval. During a lull in the rush, Marcus leaned over the counter, lowering his voice. "Hey, Olivia, does Tyler usually run the register by himself?" She glanced up, wide-eyed and hesitant. "Most of the time, Logan likes having him handle the cash because, well, they're friends. Tyler says he's just doing what's best for the station." Olivia's words were laced with resignation, and Marcus could tell she was too afraid to challenge Tyler's authority. Marcus's frustration deepened. Tyler wasn't just manipulating prices, he was creating a hostile work environment where junior employees were afraid to speak up. Marcus continued his observations throughout the day, occasionally asking questions without raising suspicion. When he worked alongside Raymond, a quiet, diligent gas attendant, Marcus found someone who understood the mechanics of the operation far better than Tyler or Logan. Raymond admitted in hushed tones that Tyler's price schemes were an open secret among the staff. "Most of us just keep our heads down. Logan's loyal to Tyler, so if you speak up, you're the one out of a job," Raymond explained, his voice resigned but clear. The more Marcus uncovered, the more certain he became that corruption had taken root far deeper than he'd initially feared. Tyler's schemes were obvious, but the real problem was Logan's willingness to ignore them, an abdication of leadership Marcus found utterly unacceptable. He needed more evidence before making his move, but the truth was undeniable. Station number 7 had lost its way, and Marcus wasn't about to let it slide. Marcus returned to station number 7 the next morning, his frustration simmering beneath the surface. Determined to gather more evidence, he observed Tyler's operations closely, taking mental notes of every inflated price and every bill that suspiciously disappeared into Tyler's pocket. As the day wore on, Marcus decided to test the waters. During a brief lull, he approached Tyler at the counter, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Hey, Tyler, just curious. Why do prices change so much depending on the car?" Tyler shot him a scornful look, the kind reserved for someone who dared question his authority. "Look, man, it's just business. Those rich types, they can afford it. They barely blink when I tack on an extra 20 or 30 bucks. That's how we keep the place running," he said, his voice thick with smugness. Marcus felt his fists clench, but he kept his composure. "But isn't the price supposed to be standard? That's what's on the website." Tyler laughed, the sound harsh and dismissive. "Website? Man, that's for show. Out here we do what works." Marcus's patience was running thin. Worse, Tyler's arrogance seemed to fuel itself every time Marcus tried to dig deeper. Logan, the station manager, remained absent for most of the day, only appearing briefly to chat with Tyler and glance over paperwork before vanishing again. The employees were clearly aware of the imbalance of power. Olivia flinched whenever Tyler barked orders her way, while Raymond kept his head down, too weary to intervene. Vince, the veteran worker, finally spoke up after Tyler stormed off during his shift change. "You're poking a hornet's nest, kid. Tyler and Logan, they're tight. Tyler does whatever he wants because Logan lets him." Vince's voice was resigned, but his words carried weight. Marcus could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the resignation of someone who had tried to do the right thing before, only to be dismissed or punished for it. If you're smart, you'll keep your head down and do the job. Otherwise, you'll be gone before your first paycheck clears. Marcus absorbed the warning, but his resolve only strengthened. If Tyler and Logan were going to hide behind their corrupt practices, then Marcus would make sure their protection crumbled. One way or another. Marcus walked into station number 7 the next morning, but this time there was no disguise. Dressed in a crisp, dark blazer and polished shoes, he cut a figure of authority that sent ripples of unease through the gas station's staff. Logan, the manager, was the first to notice him. His eyes widened with a mix of confusion and panic as Marcus approached. "Morning, Logan," Marcus said coolly, his gaze unwavering. "I believe we need to talk." Before Logan could muster a response, Marcus strode past him and headed straight for the cramped back office. Tyler emerged from the register area, his usual smirk vanishing the moment he saw Marcus's sharp, formal attire. "What's this, some sort of inspection?" Tyler scoffed, his voice a fraction less confident than usual. Marcus didn't bother replying. Instead, he motioned for both Logan and Tyler to join him in the office. Inside, Marcus shut the door and turned to face the two men. "For the past few days, I've been working here under the name Sam Carter, watching, listening, learning," he began, his voice steady and unforgiving. Logan's face drained of color, his shoulders sagging as the truth sank in. Tyler's reaction was different, a defiant sneer that barely hid his unease. "So what? You went undercover to babysit us? You don't know how things work around here," Tyler snapped. Marcus met Tyler's glare with a calm intensity. "I know how things are supposed to work. Standardized pricing, honest service, respect for customers and employees alike. You violated all of that." Tyler rolled his eyes. "It's called upselling. I'm making you money." Marcus's jaw tightened. "No, you were lining your own pockets. I watched you overcharge customers and pocket cash. That's theft, plain and simple." Tyler's bravado faltered, but he pushed back with stubborn arrogance. "So, fire me. Good luck keeping this place running without someone who knows how to bring in profit." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You're fired, effective immediately. And Logan, you're suspended pending a full investigation. This station is supposed to be a reflection of my father's legacy, not a den of corruption." Logan's shoulders slumped, his protests falling to nothing as Marcus continued. "I'll be staying here for the rest of the week. And I'll be making changes whether you like it or not." Marcus's declaration hung in the air like a blade, sharp and final. The two men left the office, Logan with a defeated shuffle, Tyler with a muttered curse and a slammed door. Marcus remained standing, his expression resolute. The reckoning had begun. With Tyler gone and Logan suspended, Marcus found himself standing alone in the dingy office of station number 7, the air thick with tension and suspicion. Stepping out into the bustling lot, Marcus gathered the remaining employees, Raymond, Olivia, Leo, and Vince, near the refueling area. He didn't speak from behind a desk or with a rehearsed speech. Instead, he stood before them, just another worker in a dirty apron and scuffed boots. "I owe all of you an apology," Marcus began, his voice firm but genuine. "This place has been running without proper guidance for far too long. What I've seen here, the favoritism, the price manipulation, the fear of speaking up, it's unacceptable. And that's my failure as much as anyone's." His admission was met with stunned silence. No one had expected the owner of ReillyFuel to take responsibility for the mess. Marcus looked each of them in the eye, especially Vince, whose folded arms and skeptical gaze spoke of hard-earned disillusionment. "I need your help to make this right. No more schemes, no more fear of retaliation for speaking the truth. If something's wrong, I want to hear about it directly from you." Raymond nodded slowly, his expression softening. Olivia looked nervous but intrigued, her eyes darting from Marcus to Vince, who remained stoic and guarded. Leo, the youngest and most inexperienced, seemed simply relieved that Tyler was no longer barking orders at him. Vince finally spoke, his voice heavy with doubt. "We've heard promises before. Managers come and go. The higher-ups only care about the numbers." Marcus nodded. "I get that, and if all I cared about were the profits, I wouldn't be here, working the pumps beside you. This isn't just about fixing one station, it's about changing how we do things across the board, and it starts here." The sincerity in Marcus's voice seemed to cut through Vince's skepticism. "You want me to believe things will be different?" Vince asked, his arms still crossed but his tone less hostile. "I don't want you to believe it, I want you to see it," Marcus replied. "And I want your input. If you think I'm doing something wrong, tell me. If you have ideas, share them." The crew exchanged glances, uncertainty gradually giving way to something more hopeful. Marcus knew words weren't enough. He needed to earn their trust through action, and that meant getting his hands dirty, literally. As he picked up a squeegee and headed to the pumps, the team followed, curiosity and cautious optimism evident in their faces. Marcus was determined to rebuild this station's reputation from the ground up, one honest interaction at a time. Marcus wasted no time implementing the changes he had promised. Over the next few days, he worked shoulder to shoulder with the team at Station Number 7, observing every aspect of their operations and noting areas in desperate need of improvement. He started with the basics, ensuring that every customer received the correct prices listed on the company's official website. Marcus installed a new tamper-proof point-of-sale system, one that automatically logged every transaction and generated detailed reports sent directly to his office. Gone were the days when employees like Tyler could manipulate prices for their own gain. Marcus also instituted a strict, non-negotiable rule. Prices were to remain consistent across all stations, regardless of the car's make or model. Premium services could be offered, but only with full transparency and customer consent. But Marcus didn't stop there. Recognizing that a culture of intimidation and favoritism had been allowed to fester under Logan's negligent management, he implemented a new employee feedback system that encouraged staff members to voice concerns or suggestions anonymously if they preferred. He also revamped the training process, working closely with Vince to develop a clear, structured onboarding program for new hires. This initiative included shadowing experienced workers, practical training on handling difficult customers, and periodic assessments to ensure quality standards were maintained. Marcus appointed Vince as the interim manager, acknowledging his years of dedication and deep knowledge of the station's operations. Though initially hesitant, Vince gradually embraced the role, his natural leadership abilities surfacing as he took on greater responsibility. To address long-term oversight, Marcus established a network of regional integrity officers, trusted employees from various locations who would conduct surprise visits, audits, and employee interviews. He handpicked 2 individuals for the role: Terrell from another station who had consistently shown dedication and transparency, and Claire, a veteran manager known for her ethical approach to business. Their job was simple: ensure that every station operated according to the principles ReillyFuel was built upon: honesty, respect, and fairness. Finally, Marcus drafted a company-wide memo detailing the changes being implemented and reinforcing the values that had been neglected for too long. The message was clear: ReillyFuel would no longer tolerate unethical practices, and everyone from the newest hire to the most senior manager would be held accountable. As Marcus sent the memo, he felt the weight of his responsibility lessen slightly, but he knew that words alone would not be enough. Real change required constant effort and vigilance, and Marcus was prepared to see it through. Marcus knew that implementing structural reforms was only half the battle. Winning back the trust and loyalty of his employees required a genuine, sustained effort. For the rest of the week, he continued working at station number 7, not as the CEO of ReillyFuel, but as an equal, sweating through his work clothes alongside Raymond and Vince at the pumps, unloading deliveries with Leo, and covering shifts at the register to ease Olivia's nerves. Marcus made a point of acknowledging their efforts, praising hard work, and offering constructive feedback where needed. It was more than just playing the part of a manager. It was about proving that he valued their contributions and respected them as individuals. He started providing meals during long shifts and made sure every worker had access to proper safety gear and equipment, small gestures that spoke louder than corporate memos. The change in atmosphere was gradual but noticeable. Olivia, who had once seemed timid and overwhelmed, began to smile more often, her shoulders less tense as she greeted customers. Leo showed a new enthusiasm, finally given the proper training he needed to excel. Raymond, who had kept his head down for years to avoid trouble, found himself exchanging easy conversation with Marcus as they cleaned the fuel pumps together. Even Vince, the veteran who had all but given up hope for improvement, showed a glimmer of cautious optimism. Marcus had given him the authority to enforce fair practices, and the respect he received from his colleagues validated his years of experience. But it wasn't just about kindness. Marcus made sure everyone understood that accountability worked both ways. When Olivia accidentally mishandled a transaction, Marcus didn't scold her. Instead, he walked her through the process, showing her how to avoid the mistake in the future. When Leo forgot to restock the windshield washer fluid, Marcus used it as a teaching moment, not an opportunity for reprimand. Through patience and consistency, Marcus slowly reshaped the workplace dynamic, making it clear that competence and integrity would be recognized and rewarded. By the end of the week, Marcus had earned something more valuable than profit margins or performance reports. He had earned his employees' respect. They saw him not just as a distant figure in a corporate office, but as a leader willing to roll up his sleeves and work beside them. Vince summed it up best during a late afternoon break, leaning against the side of a truck with a rare, genuine smile. "It's been a long time since anyone around here gave a damn. Guess we were waiting for someone to remind us why this place mattered." For the first time since Marcus had gone undercover, he allowed himself to believe that real change was possible. With station number 7 finally on the path to recovery, Marcus shifted his focus to the rest of ReillyFuel's locations. Determined to apply the same standards of integrity and accountability across the company, he began conducting unannounced visits to every station under his ownership. Unlike the sterile, scheduled inspections of the past, Marcus's visits were spontaneous and hands-on. He'd arrive during peak hours, roll up his sleeves, and work alongside the staff, observing their practices and listening to their concerns. It wasn't about catching people in the act of wrongdoing. It was about understanding their challenges and acknowledging their efforts. What Marcus discovered during these visits was both encouraging and disheartening. Some stations, like Vince's, had responded positively to his reforms, embracing the new standards and fostering a supportive work environment, but others still struggled under weak management, neglectful supervisors, and outdated training procedures. At one location, Marcus uncovered a pattern of favoritism where employees were routinely denied raises despite their hard work. At another, he found a cashier working double shifts without overtime pay. Each time, Marcus intervened directly, dismissing ineffective managers and promoting those who demonstrated true leadership qualities. To reinforce his efforts, Marcus expanded the role of the regional integrity officers, ensuring they visited each location regularly and reported their findings directly to him. Vince proved instrumental in helping Marcus roll out the new policies, his station now serving as a model for how things should be done. Employees across the company began to notice the change. For the first time, their complaints were taken seriously, their concerns addressed with genuine effort rather than empty promises. Marcus made it clear that ReillyFuel's commitment to integrity wasn't a temporary campaign, it was the new foundation of the company. As Marcus continued his rounds, the gratitude from his employees became its own reward. But more importantly, their loyalty grew stronger. They no longer saw him as a distant figurehead, but as a leader invested in their success. And for Marcus, that was worth more than any profit margin. Months passed and ReillyFuel transformed from a company riddled with corruption and neglect into one that valued integrity, respect, and genuine leadership. Marcus's reforms spread across all 12 stations, reshaping the company's culture from the ground up. Vince proved to be a natural leader at station number 7, guiding his team with the same steady hand Marcus had trusted him to develop. Under his management, customer complaints dwindled, employee turnover decreased, and profits rose steadily, not through exploitation or manipulation, but through honest service and satisfied patrons who returned time and again. Marcus continued his practice of making unannounced visits, never allowing himself to drift back into the complacency that had nearly cost him his father's legacy. The regional integrity officers, Terrell and Claire, proved invaluable in maintaining consistency, conducting regular audits and encouraging feedback from employees at every level. The new training programs Marcus had developed were now standard across all locations, providing clear guidelines and practical support for both new hires and seasoned staff alike. Every station operated under the same principles: fairness, transparency, and accountability. One evening, Marcus sat in his office, reviewing the latest performance reports. They were the best he had seen in years. More importantly, they were genuine, a direct reflection of the efforts he and his employees had put into rebuilding the company. As he scrolled through the reports, a message from Vince appeared on his screen. "Just wanted to say thanks, Marcus. I never thought I'd see this place turn around. You kept your word." The simple words meant more to Marcus than any chart or statistic. It was proof that his efforts had mattered, that his commitment to integrity had inspired others to believe in the company again. Marcus leaned back in his chair, feeling a quiet satisfaction that he hadn't experienced in years. He had regained the trust of his employees, restored the company's reputation, and honored his father's legacy by doing what Robert Reilly had always insisted upon: keeping it clean and keeping it fair. As Marcus prepared to shut down his computer for the night, he made a final note to himself: never lose touch with the ground, always keep listening. With that, he closed his laptop, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. For Marcus, this was only the beginning of something better. The story of Marcus Reilly's undercover journey through his own gas station chain teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, integrity, and accountability. It highlights the importance of staying connected to the foundation of a business, its employees and customers. By immersing himself in the day-to-day operations, Marcus discovered issues that spreadsheets and reports could never reveal. His willingness to step down from his position of power and work alongside his employees demonstrated humility and genuine care, earning their trust and loyalty. The key lesson is that true leadership requires visibility and direct engagement. When leaders become too detached from their workforce, corruption and negligence can easily fester. Marcus's proactive approach, listening, learning, and taking decisive action, proved that transparency and fairness are essential for lasting success. Furthermore, his reforms showed that accountability must be consistent, from the highest-ranking executives to the newest hires. Ultimately, Marcus's experience underscores that respect and trust cannot be demanded. They must be earned through honest effort and consistent actions. By prioritizing integrity and empowering his employees, Marcus not only salvaged his company's reputation, but also built a stronger, more resilient organization rooted in fairness and respect.